Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Sherwin and welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be reviewing the drive we took to Northern California with our 2022 Model X long range. If you haven't seen the previous video where I go over the data, please go check it out. It is over an hour long, but most of that video is me recording each of the supercharging stops so you get a better idea of what to expect when you do go to those stops, or just in general when you stop for charging in a road trip. So I have some notes here that I'm going to be reading from, and let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the stops. You are going to stop more frequently. We chose to stop 9 different times. We didn't have to stop 9 different times. We could have stopped less, but I just wanted to stop because part of the trip is just checking out the superchargers. With the supercharging stops, it added an extra 4 hours and 10 minutes round trip. During these stops, we would get snacks, walk around, explore, etc. As the driver, I find it helpful to have more frequent stops. As I mentioned in other videos, I never realized how stressed I was getting from driving from point A to point B in a gas car. Don't get me wrong, driving that distance is still tiring, but I don't feel as pressured of getting to my destination. Do plan for extra stops though, which we're already accustomed to. So when driving an EV, especially in long destinations, you're gonna have to stop just like a regular gas car. You're gonna have to stop for refueling. You may stop more frequently depending on the distance or fuel capacity of the vehicle. So for instance, our Model X, EPA says 300-ish miles, but I never go by that because there's so many things that use up the energy. Similar to gas vehicles, the MPGs are not usually accurate because whenever they take those readings or ratings, it's always like at the optimal condition, right? So you have to consider things like temperature, you have to consider the weight of the vehicle, as well as passengers and additional luggages and stuff. You also have to consider uphills and downhills. So there's many factors into it. So let's just say that our Model X can do 300 miles per fully charged. Well, this trip was over 1,000 miles, so we would have to definitely stop. And it may seem like, oh, it only required 3 stops total instead of the 9. But I think we would have to stop 3 times each way just to be safe, because you don't want to like go all the way to 0%. You want to have room for error, whether there may be traffic, maybe the superchargers are unavailable, maybe the superchargers are slow. So those are the different reasons that I've shared in the previous videos of why we stopped more frequently than we needed to. I also just wanted to break up the trip. I wanted to stop ever so often and just stretch out my legs and just hang out and then just enjoy the different places that we've never been to because we never had a reason to. So now when we're going on trips, we always look at the map and we look at different superchargers and just figure out like, hey, what's over there besides the supercharger. So, but yeah, breaking up the trip, I mean, in my opinion, as a driver, I think is something that many people should explore unless they just really don't have the time. But previously in a gas car, I need to stop. I need to stop sitting there and just break up the trip. So autopilot and auto steer, I rarely used autopilot and auto steer, but in this trip I used it frequently. I'd say at least 50% of the time. This is when I started to miss having FSD or EAP, which is enhanced autopilot. What I miss the most is the lane changing. Without it, you would have to disengage for the lane change and re-engage afterwards. Another difference is with the Model X, there is no in-between mode. With Model 3 and Model Y, tapping the stock once will engage cruise control. You will still have to steer the vehicle, but the speed is controlled by the car. It can determine speed adjustments using the cameras. So if the car in front of you is getting closer, it will adjust the speed accordingly and vice versa. Tapping the stock twice will enable autopilot and auto steer. in the Model X and probably the Model S, I'm not sure because I've never driven a Model S, but I'm only guessing. It does not have cruise control, just autopilot. So there is no in between, right? When you enable auto steer and autopilot, that's what you get. There is no just maintaining the speed, right? Like it will engage. When you engage autopilot, it'll engage auto steer at the same time. So the car will be keeping you in the lane. This is where I start to miss full self-driving or enhanced autopilot. That one feature where it can change lanes for you without disengaging autopilot. So if I have to change lanes because I have to pass up other cars or just change lanes, I would have to disengage autopilot, and once I make my lane change, I have to re-engage it. It's just a convenience thing, I guess. So right now, enhanced autopilot is $6,000, and that's pretty expensive for that one single feature. And I wish they made it as part of the standard autopilot, but it's not at the moment. So hopefully in the future, Tesla would reconsider the basic autopilot to include lane changing, because that would be awesome. Otherwise, I was surprised at how much I've used the autopilot in this trip. There was a situation when the car slowed down because the cameras were having a hard time. But I wouldn't consider it phantom braking. It did slow down, but slowly. That's why you always have to pay attention and be ready. So yes, there was at some point the car slowed down on its own because according to the notification or message, that it said that it wasn't like clear, like it couldn't see properly. And I took a picture of the road ahead, and it was bright. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it's just a glitch, or maybe it's just a precautionary thing, or maybe a wind blew an object into one of the cameras. Who knows? But it did slow down the vehicle, and then once it readjusted itself, it went back to the regular cruise control speed. So the Yoke steering wheel, the Yoke was easy to use, and I prefer it more. Although majority of the trip does not require many turns, just go straight and maneuver on the curves. I've gotten used to it already. I use the horns as the grip point for my finger when turning. I can rest my hands in the bottom holes or on top part of the yoke. So yeah, the yoke is easy to get used to. I actually prefer it. I've said it a couple of times already in previous videos. Whenever I'm using my Model Y, I actually look for it. And this is one of the things I don't like having two Teslas, is because the adjustment between the two vehicles, because they're different. When we had a Model 3 and a Model Y, it didn't affect us, or it didn't affect me as much, because the interface, or just the tools presented in front of me, are pretty much identical between Model Y and Model 3. This is not the case if you have a Model Y and a Model X, because Model 3 and Model Y are pretty much the same vehicle, except the Model Y is just a taller, bigger vehicle. And the Model S and the Model X are the same kind of vehicle in terms of the interior, except the Model X is bigger. So if I had a Model S and a Model X, then I probably won't be as confused or have a lot of adjustments. But going back to the steering wheel, I really like it. I think I know where Tesla's headed with this design. I think this is how they're gonna encourage the use of autopilot, because it really does encourage you to use it. Not because the Yoke steering wheel like sucks, or it just makes you not want to use the Yoke steering wheel, but I think they go hand in hand. Where all the instruments are laid out, all the panels are laid out, where all the buttons and everything are laid out. I think they go hand in hand as far as utilizing autopilot with it. It's like a gateway drug, or to autopilot. I don't know, but it sort of makes sense if your mindset is headed in that direction anyway. But yeah, I do prefer the Yoke steering wheel. Oddly enough, I was a bit concerned when we first got it, but I grew into it pretty quickly, and now I look for it whenever I'm in my Model Y. Now the buttons themselves, they're touch capacitive, and it does require some force and not too much force to engage in any of the functionalities in the steering wheel. I haven't. I think on one occasion I have accidentally hit the horn while turning the steering wheel, but other than that, I don't recall. I do sometimes have to keep looking down when I have to turn or engage the turn signals. But there is a little physical divider where my thumb can feel through, and I know, okay, below it is left turn, above it is right turn. But yeah, the adjustment though is that horn, because the horn, my brain is like hit the middle of the steering wheel, and that's the horn instead of the button. So I remember, not during this trip, but there was one time where a car cut us off, I think. I don't remember exactly, but I just needed to hit the horn, and Abby was with me, and I hit the horn like late, and then Abby's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I gotta pump my horn, because like they gotta be aware, like what they did was incorrect, or like just, dude, we would have gotten into an accident or something." And it's like, well, what good is it gonna do when it's like 5 seconds later? I don't know. I found the horn a few seconds late, and I still pumped it anyway. But yeah, so that's a big adjustment when it comes to the horn and the Yoke steering wheel. But beyond that, like I said, like I read off my notes, when you go on road trips, when you're on the highways or freeways, you're mainly going straight. So one of just the things you have to adjust to with the Yoke steering wheel is the turns, right? When you have to make turns. Well, you're on the freeway, and majority of the time you're just going straight. The only time you would do slight turns is when you're lane changing or when there's a curve. And even with the Yoke steering wheel, those slight turns doesn't really affect the use of the Yoke. So that's why it wasn't really such a big deal. So, but yeah, I like the Yoke. I like the Yoke. So supercharging, there was no issue with supercharging. The locations and amount of stops were convenient and plenty. We have all adjusted to the extra stops and time spent. Keep in mind, this is not our first EV, not our first Tesla. So we've been using a Tesla since late 2019. So we've grown accustomed to it. As mentioned, we get to explore places we would drive through had there not been a reason to stop. I welcome the stops as it breaks up the trip for me being the driver. I'll either drive to around 40 to 50% state of charge, or about 2 hours straight. I think that's my limit now. Maybe I'm getting old. I don't want to drive straight more than 2 hours. I don't know. It's just, I need to just break up the trip. So that's where my limit is set. Either 2 hours or roughly around 2 hours, or I'll look at the state of charge. If it floats around 40 to 50%, I'm going to start looking for a charger. My reasons would be, again, what if there's traffic? What if we go to a supercharger that's slow or very busy? So these are just things to consider, or just to be prepared. There isn't really any big difference as far as mindset between having an EV and a gas car, except that gas stations are more available, like very more available. What am I trying to say? So you don't have to really plan like that where, oh, what if the gas station's packed, or what if the gas stations are down, or what if the gas station's slow? Like, there is no such thing. Not to say that it doesn't get busy, but during road trips, there's plenty of gas stations. Rarely is it busy. And so you don't have to really worry about, oh, you know what, I'm running, or I'm halfway through my gas tank, maybe I should go pull over. Unless you're in a remote area and you think that there aren't any gas stations on the way. So yeah, of course you're gonna, pull over and make a stop and fill up just in case there are no gas stations. But you see, it's the same thing. It's like, what if, right? The what ifs. So you might as well go and charge, because you never know, right? And so I guess in road trips though, the wait time during refueling it will be longer, unlike in the city, where I've noticed many gas stations are now, there is a wait. But I digress. All I'm trying to say is there is no big change of mindset per se. You still want to plan ahead, right? You still want to plan ahead. It's just you don't have to plan ahead as frequently. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is the plans that you apply when refueling for gas is the same as the plans you apply when charging battery for your EV, except that gas stations are more available, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Is that what I'm trying to say? I don't know. I guess the other thing I'm trying to say is there were no problems supercharging. As far as with the Tesla supercharging network, there was plenty, like unbelievably plenty. Going up north to Northern California, the rates were reasonable, and the availability of charging stations was vast, was plenty. And we traveled Friday and went back Sunday. So you may discount Friday because maybe it's not as busy. But coming back home on a Sunday, many people are traveling during that time. Never had an issue with waiting at a supercharger because everyone's using it. There were some locations that had less than others, but again, no issues whatsoever with waiting. And yeah, it's great. So I wanted to add the ventilated seats. All cars need to have ventilated seats. I get real warm around my hamstring area. Is that a health condition? But it's no longer an issue with the Model X. So this is a feature I've always wanted, and I wish I had it in every car that I own. I wish the Model Y has it, because, man, like I said, I get really warm around my hamstring area. I'm not sure, maybe I'm a mutant or something. Do you guys sweat around that area? Or am I just sitting improperly? Am I slouched? Should I fix my posture? I don't know, but it's really a great feature to have, and I wish more cars had it. Man, I would pay if Tesla came out with a Model Y and an option to have ventilated seats. I would pay for that. And actually, they should include that if you purchase the white interior, because you're already paying extra, and that should be part of that. So hopefully in the future, I mean, it doesn't help me because I already have my Model Y, but I think it's a great feature to add to the other Tesla vehicles. It's really great. It's really great. I'm not sure why I keep spending more time on this topic, but man, I love ventilated seats. Now, in the Model X, it's only available in the front seats. It's not available in the second row or the third row, but all seats do have heated seats. So just keep that in mind, but ventilated seats, love it. All right, so conclusion. As expected, we didn't run into any issues on our trip. The information I've shared is based on the driver's perspective, me. I could care less what my passengers thought because this trip wouldn't have been possible if I didn't drive. But I didn't hear any complaints like, "Why are we stopping again?" Their iPads took care of "Are we there yet?" questions. Space-wise, it's a 6-seater that fit 3 adults and 2 kids. Plenty of room for suitcases and bags. Overall, the trip was quite pleasant. The suspension was set to comfort, and it was. The ride height defaults to low if I recall. So the only surprise I had was the charging cost of the trip. I felt that it should have been cheaper. Now, September 2022, Tesla did notify its owners of some price changes, supercharging rate price changes. 45 to 46 cents per kilowatt hour, I guess, is a fair price, but I am just curious if they were lower previously. On top of that, at that rate, they're fast. 150 kilowatt to 250. I mean, they're fast. So let me know in the comments below if you've taken that trip prior to the September price changes, if they were the same, or if they were lower, or if they were higher. I'm curious. I hope you found this review helpful. I hope it provided a better understanding of what it's like to go on a road trip with an electric vehicle. I heard many bad experiences charging with Electrify America and other non-Tesla charging stations. I have yet to experience that with the Tesla network. My range anxiety vanished a long time ago because of this, and I'm confident on taking many more road trips. I hope in the future the charging network improves so that other non-Tesla vehicles will have a better road trip experience. This could also increase EV adoption. Have you taken road trips with your EV? Has your experience been similar as ours? Please comment below and share. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.